Hey, how's it amazing people? Welcome back to Data and AI with Clarence. I haven't been releasing videos for I think about 2 to 3 weeks, and reason being I've been struggling with managing content creation and work because content creation is sort of a new thing for me. So I had to sort of take a break and figure out a new routine that would best align with me and allowing me to sort of try to release videos at least once a week. So yeah, but today we are going to be shooting a very interesting video, which is big data. So if you ever wondered what exactly big data is, where the word actually comes from, and sometimes you hear people talking about the 5 V's and you wonder what are those, and is big data a good thing for society, or is it a bad thing? So in today's video, we're going to cover all of that by starting off by defining what big data is, looking at some of the statistics and looking at the 5 V's, the characteristics of data, and also looking at some of the challenges that actually come with big data and some of the good things that have came as a result of big data. So without wasting any time, let's get into it. Okay, great. So now, what is big data? Maybe let's just put a little bit of context around this. So way back in the 90s, basically, what happened was that majority of the things were not entirely online as things are right now. But with companies such as Google, Amazon, and social media platforms growing, what happened was that more people started to go online, more companies started to go online, more activities started to go online, and this meant that the amount of data that we were producing started increasing and increasing. Now, it got to a point where the traditional systems, like your traditional relational databases, could not handle this data because this data was coming in the form of structured, unstructured, and semi structured data, and the rate at which this data was actually being produced was far much more faster than the traditional systems could handle. Now, because of this, someone said, okay, this data is way too complex for traditional systems. It is produced at a very, very faster rate. Let's call this data big data. So they called the data that traditional systems could not handle, and that was produced at a very faster rate and came in different data formats, big data. So by definition, big data is data that is large and too complex for traditional systems to handle. And that's exactly what big data is and where the word big data actually comes from. So now let's look at the statistics, right? So I went to exploringtopics.com just to get us some exciting statistics to get an understanding of how much data we are producing at a global scale. So this year alone, we produced about 150 zettabytes of data. And just to put that into context, 1 zettabyte of data is equivalent to 1 trillion gigabytes of data. So meaning this year alone, we produced about 150 trillion gigabytes of data, and the year hasn't even ended. And some of the major sources of this data are video. So video accounts for about 54% of the data, and most of the data also comes from social media, which accounts to for about 13%, and some of it comes from gaming. So a lot of people participate in gaming, and that accounts for about 10% of the data. And there's so many other things that actually contribute to this list, which I'm not obviously going to look at in detail. And I've got other interesting statistics. Well, here it says that on average, we send out about 333 billion emails, and 8.5 billion Google searches are literally done per day, and there's about 24 billion texts that are being sent. Well, everyone is using social media these days, which would actually explain the large volumes of text messages that are being sent. So that in a nutshell shows you how much data we are producing at a global scale, which is quite a lot of data. And if you look at the trend of how much data we've been producing, it's been growing at an exponential rate. So 10 years from now, we might probably need new systems to handle this amount of data. But I think for now, we've got the proper systems to manage the data that we actually have. So with that, let's look at the characteristics of big data. So someone sat down and they were like, okay, how do you recognize something as big data and they sort of like created the characteristics that sort of like define big data, right? So they called, initially it was the 3 V's, and then later it became the 5 V's. You might hear it becoming the 7 V's. It's always changing, right? So today we're just going to look at the 5 characteristics of big data. And the first one, that would be volume. So volume talks about the quantity of the data. Now, the volume of big data is massive. It's not small data sets. It's large amounts of data sets that traditional systems are not able to sort of like manage. And the second V is velocity. Now, velocity speaks about the speed at which the data is created. Big data is created at very fast speeds, so large amounts of data are created at very fast speeds, and they need to be processed at also very fast speed, which is what traditional systems also could not actually sort of do. And then the other part of it is the variety, right? So variety talks about the different formats by which this data comes in. So this data comes in sort of like structured and structured data. So it's not like your traditional data that's structured, like data that's used by relational databases has to be structured. Well, with big data, data can be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. And now leaving us to the last 2 V's, so which is veracity. So veracity basically speaks about the accuracy and quality of the data. Because this data is so massive, the quality and accuracy of the data can vary, which is very important for whoever is using the data to ensure data integrity and reliability. And then the last V, which is value. Now, value talks about the kind of insights that can be obtained from this data. Now, because this is a lot of data, and the potential insights that can be obtained are invaluable. There's a lot of insights that you can obtain from this data, and there's a lot of things that you could obtain from just looking and analyzing this particular data. And that is what the 5 V's are. It's volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value. So those are some of the characteristics of big data. Great, so now let's look at the benefits and the challenges that have came with big data. But firstly, maybe let's look at the challenges. Well, because big data comes in large volumes of data, structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data, the storage and management of this data has been quite challenging for a lot of entities, especially the smaller companies that often need to invest a lot of capital to be able to manage this kind of data, or to even be able to utilize or take advantage of this kind of data. So data management and storage has been a major issue. The second part of it is the privacy, right? Privacy and security of this data. This data must be protected as it moves from one system to another, from one place to another. There needs to be more stringent security measures in place to protect the data, but also at the same time ensuring that data is available to whoever wants to utilizing it, who will utilize that particular data set. And obviously privacy now, because big data carries so many dimensions about a single person, right? With big data, you can learn about a customer and what they do on social media, to like their work profile, to there's so many profiles like your shopping profile, and all the different profiles can be collected and utilized within big data. So big data means that like data from various sources can be collected and integrated, and that raises an issue to say, if companies have so much data about me, what does that say about my privacy? Do I even own the data that relates to me in all those different dimensions, basically? And I guess that's one of the major concerns or privacy concerns that people have when it comes to big data. Now, the benefits. Now, obviously, because we've got access to large amounts of data, and if you're able to take advantage of this data, this means better decision making. Say a company is planning to venture into a certain industry, and there's large amounts of data about that industry, and that allows that company to be able to identify the opportunities in that industry and have more insights backing that particular decision, as opposed to maybe having a few data set backing your decision. The more data that you have supporting the decision that you'd like to make, the more reliable that decision, or the more beneficial that decision would become in the long run. And some of the other benefits that have actually came from this is personalization, because entities are able to collect large amounts of data about you. Sometimes when you go to a website, they sort of already have built a profile around you as a customer, and because of the data they're able to collect from all these various platforms in different forms and structure, they're able to offer you a service that's personalized to you, because they've obtained all of those insights about you, and they're able to put that into one platform and offer you a personalized service, as opposed to traditionally where systems could not process large amounts of data from different formats, and whether structured or unstructured. Because now that's a possibility, big data brings that opportunity to just say you can get a more personalized service, because entities are able to analyze large amounts of data about you. Well, we have came to the end of the video, and I hope by now you understand what big data is, and you've got a sense of how much data we are producing, and you understand what the 5 V's are, and you know what are some of the benefits that have came with big data, and some of the challenges obviously that industry is facing with regards to big data. And if you enjoyed this video and found it valuable, please like and subscribe to my channel so that more people can discover content like this. So that's it for me. Thank you.